For 23 years, a school janitor secretly spent nearly $200,000 helping students. Nobody knew where the money was coming from. Nobody knew why he was doing it. Students walked past him every single day without a second glance. And when the truth finally came out, the entire school stood in complete silence. This is the story of Mr. Harris, and the secret he carried alone for over 2 decades. Westbrook High School, Chicago, Illinois. Every morning before the teachers arrived, before the buses pulled in, Harold Harris was already there. Same gray uniform, same worn canvas bag, same folding chair near the boiler room where he ate lunch alone. Most students didn't know his name. Some called him the mop guy. Others walked past him like he was part of the wall. He never complained. He never asked for anything. To everyone at Westbrook High, Mr. Harris was invisible. But invisibility, it turns out, can hide extraordinary things. Michael Anderson was 17 and going through the worst semester of his life. His parents had just separated. His grades were slipping, and his father, Michael, hadn't spoken to his father in 4 months. Not an argument, not a fight, just silence. The kind that grows until you don't remember how it started. He wasn't a bad kid. He was just lost. One Tuesday in October, Michael stayed late to retake a failed history quiz. He was the last student in the building, or so he thought. Walking past the cafeteria, he heard something. A quiet clicking sound. He peeked through the small window on the cafeteria door. Mr. Harris, standing alone at the lunch cashier's computer. No one watching, no one around. The old janitor reached into his pocket, unfolded a small piece of paper, and carefully typed something into the system. Michael pushed the door open. Mr. Harris looked up, completely calm. "You know Marcus Jenkins?" he asked quietly. "Junior. Sits near the back of the lunch line." Michael nodded. Marcus was the kid who always looked exhausted. His family had been struggling since his dad lost his job. "His lunch account hit 0 last week," Mr. Harris said. "Kid's been skipping lunch for 4 days." He clicked one final button, closed the window, picked up his mop. "Wait," Michael said. "Did you just pay for his lunch?" Mr. Harris paused, didn't turn around. Everyone needs a little help sometimes. And just like that, he was gone. Michael stood in the empty cafeteria. Something had shifted. He didn't know what yet, but something had shifted. Over the next 6 weeks, Michael started paying attention, really paying attention. Destiny Brown couldn't afford her $85 AP exam fee. 2 days later, anonymous donor, no name. Jalen Moore's laptop was stolen. He needed it for college applications. 3 days later, a sealed envelope on his desk. Laptop inside, sticky note, "Don't give up." Every time, no name, no explanation, and every time, Mr. Harris had been nearby. Michael couldn't let it go, so he did something he hadn't planned on doing. He went to Ms. Carter, his history teacher, one of the few teachers at Westbrook who actually listened. "Have you ever noticed Mr. Harris doing anything unusual?" he asked carefully. Ms. Carter looked at him for a long moment. "Why are you asking, Michael?" He hesitated. "I think he's been helping students with money, secretly." Ms. Carter was quiet. Then she said something that made Michael's stomach drop. "I've wondered about that for years." She leaned forward. 2 years ago, I had a student, single mom. Eviction notice, was going to drop out of school to get a job. I didn't know what to do. I mentioned it quietly in the break room. The next week, an anonymous cashier's check arrived at the school office, exactly the amount she needed. Ms. Carter looked out the window. I always had a feeling, but I never had proof. Now, Michael had to know. The next afternoon, while Mr. Harris was in the gym setting up for an assembly, Michael slipped into the storage hallway. The door was slightly open, the way it always was. He stepped inside. On a small metal shelf, a row of sealed envelopes, each one labeled with the student's name, and next to them, bank receipts, transfer confirmations, dates going back over 15 years. Michael's eyes moved slowly across the shelf. 1 envelope, 2, 5, a dozen, 20, and then, in the very back of the shelf, slightly apart from all the others, 1 envelope. No student name, just 5 words written in small, careful handwriting. Year 23, not forgotten. Michael stared at it. Year 23 of what? Who is not forgotten? He heard footsteps in the hallway. He slipped out before anyone could see him. That night, he couldn't sleep. Graduation week arrived at Westbrook High. Michael showed up even though it wasn't his graduation, because he needed answers. Before the ceremony started, Principal Dawson stepped to the microphone. The gym went quiet. "Before we begin today," she said slowly, "I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone in this room. Most of you know him as the janitor, the man who mops your hallways, fixes your broken chairs, shows up before any of you are awake, and leaves after all of you are gone." She looked toward the back of the stage. Most of you have never spoken a single word to him. The gym was completely still. What most of you don't know is that for 23 years, this man has been secretly helping students at this school. Exam fees, laptops, lunch accounts, clothing, college application costs. A murmur moved through the crowd, all from his own savings. She let the silence sit. Over 23 years, Mr. Harris has given $190,000 of his own money to students he never told. Complete silence. Nobody moved. Before he came here, she continued, voice softer now, Harold Harris was not a janitor. People were leaning forward. He was the founder and CEO of Harris Industrial Supply, a manufacturing company in Cincinnati, over 400 employees. Confused murmurs. He sold the company in 1998. And then she stopped, took a slow breath. He became a father who lost his only son. The gym went completely still. Daniel Harris was 17 years old, a high school senior. He passed away from a sudden illness. Her voice broke slightly. 2 weeks before his graduation, someone in the front row started crying. The silence that followed was the loudest thing Michael had ever heard. After that, Principal Dawson said quietly, Mr. Harris walked away from everything, his company, his money, his former life. She looked at the old man sitting in a folding chair at the edge of the stage, hands folded, looking at the floor. He came to Chicago, walked into Westbrook High, and asked if there was a custodial position available. Pause. When they asked him why, she looked up. He said, I want to be close to kids like my son. And if I can help one of them make it, that's enough. The gym was silent for a long, long moment. And then, slowly, every single person in that room stood up. Students, parents, teachers, people who had walked past him for years, people who had never spoken his name, all standing for him. Mr. Harris remained seated for a moment, as if he didn't quite understand what was happening. His eyes moved across the gym, row after row of faces, students he'd helped, students he'd never met, students who would never know what he'd sacrificed for them. The applause started softly, then grew louder. and louder until it filled every corner of the room. Mr. Harris lowered his head. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, he removed his glasses, because for the first time in 23 years, he couldn't stop the tears. Not when he sold his company, not when he walked away from the life he'd built. But here, surrounded by hundreds of young people who still had the future his son never got to have, the walls finally broke. And somewhere in that standing crowd, Michael thought he saw something pass across the old man's face. Not pride, not recognition, just relief. As if for a brief moment, Daniel wasn't quite so far away. After the ceremony, Michael found Mr. Harris outside, folding up chairs, same as always. Mr. Harris, the old man looked up. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" Michael asked. 23 years, all that money, all those students. Why in secret? Mr. Harris set down the chair. He looked out at the empty football field. "You know what Daniel used to say to me?" he asked quietly. Michael shook his head. He used to say, "Dad, most people help because they want to feel good about helping. But the real question is, can you do it when nobody's watching? Can you do good when there's no applause, no reward, no recognition?" He picked up another chair. My boy was 17. His hands weren't steady. And he was smarter than I ever was. Michael stood there for a moment. He would have graduated this year. He nodded toward the building, where seniors were still laughing and taking photos. Every single one of them reminds me of him. Michael felt something crack open in his chest. He thought about his own father, the 4 months of silence, all the conversations they'd never had, all the times he'd walked right past him, just like everyone had walked right past Mr. Harris. He pulled out his phone, called his dad. 1 ring, 2 rings. "Hey," Michael said when he picked up. His voice was rough. "It's me. I wanted to hear your voice." On the other end of the line, there was a long pause. Then, quietly, "I've been waiting for you to call, son." The following year, Michael graduated, first in his family to receive a full scholarship to the University of Illinois. On graduation morning, the school secretary handed him a small envelope. "Someone left this for you," she said. "We don't know who." No return address, no name on the back, just his name, Michael Anderson, written in small, careful handwriting he recognized immediately. He opened it slowly. Inside, a single note card, no explanation. "You learn to see people others walk past. That's the rarest thing in the world. Daniel would have been proud to know you. Mr. Harris." Michael stood in that hallway for a long time. He didn't wipe his eyes. He didn't try to. Later that day, he looked out into the graduation crowd. His mom was there, standing and waving before he even walked in. And his dad was in the 3rd row, 6-hour drive, front section, standing before Michael even reached the stage. Their eyes met. His dad pressed his hand to his chest. Michael nodded, just once. That was enough. 3 years later, Michael returned to Westbrook High, not as a student. He walked into the main office carrying a small envelope. The secretary looked up. "Can I help you?" Michael set the envelope on the counter. "I'd like this to go to whoever needs it most," he said. The secretary looked at the envelope. On the front, 4 words written in careful handwriting. "For someone who needs it." She looked up. Michael was already walking out. Some kindness ends with a thank you. The rare kind becomes a tradition. Mr. Harris never knew that one student noticed, that one student changed, that one student came back. He just kept showing up at 5:47 every morning. doing good when nobody was watching, the way Daniel had asked him to. The most powerful act of kindness is the one done in silence, for someone who may never know your name.